Are you struggling to learn Spanish to an advanced level? Perhaps you're an intermediate learner and you're trying to get better at understanding some of the more difficult aspects of Spanish, such as the subjunctive. Sometimes learning with a native speaker might not be the best because native speakers have gone through a language acquisition process. But working with a non native speaker, you'll have access to somebody who has gone through the language learning process for a second language. What is language acquisition and how does this affect our ability to teach someone a second language? Language acquisition begins from the moment you're born. When you're born, you don't have the ability to speak a language like you do now. When you're born, you have to listen to everything that people around you are saying. And during this time, your ears are picking out small parts of sound called phonemes. And then your brain is going to start to put them together so you can produce words in English. Now, around 2 years old, you'll start to say your first words. Usually, these are small words that are made up of two phonemes that are put together. So, like ma and ma, you put them together, you'll make the word mama. You usually say your first sentence in English around 3 or 4 years old, but most of the time, this sentence is not grammatically correct and it often has errors. Why is that though? It's because during this time, until you enter school around 5 years old, your brain does not have the systematic understanding of what grammar is or how to apply it in your first language. When you enter school around age 5, that's when language acquisition really starts to occur. You start to understand the difficult parts of English, how the sounds work together, how to apply them in a systematic way, and how to produce error-free sentences that everyone can understand. But even when you are in kindergarten, first grade, second grade, all the way up until about third grade, you will still make some errors, such as saying, I have 2 feet instead of I have 2 feet. This is something that takes time for students to learn, and we have a systematic process that takes part of the language acquisition process to help people speak a little bit more clearly. When someone's gone through the language acquisition process, it's very difficult for them to understand the intrinsic rules that they know intuitively and explain them to another person. And instead, what you end up with is something like this or like this. I don't know about you, but these are very difficult for me to understand, and neither of these methods helped me to understand Spanish grammar in a deeper fashion that would allow me to speak freely and clearly with people no matter where I was in the world. One of the issues of working with someone who is a native Spanish speaker is they have all of this intuitive knowledge about how their language works, but describing it in a way that doesn't require cramming and understanding all of these different grammar rules is a little bit difficult for them. On the other hand, if you work with a teacher who has learned Spanish as a second language, you're going to have access to that language learning process. And also, the teacher is going to have a better understanding of what you're experiencing. Now, I know this sounds a little bit weird because you're probably thinking, hey, how can a non native speaker ever help you speak Spanish as well as a native speaker does? Whenever we're talking about learning the subjunctive in Spanish, any native teacher that you see is going to show you these sets of rules. Once again, this is very difficult. And when I was learning Spanish, I got to tell you about this. My first time I took a Spanish course, I got an F in it. I was in seventh grade. I took the class for the entire semester and I completely bombed it. It was horrible for me. And my teacher actually called me in and said, Hey, Sean, why is this going so badly for you? And the thing is, I didn't have an answer. I understand why it was so difficult for me. This teacher was a native Spanish speaker and he was sitting here drilling all of these grammar rules into my brain and it just didn't make sense to me. So, over the last 15 years, I found 3 very simple rules that will help you to use the subjunctive just like a native Spanish speaker. Its basis is in understanding the linguistic differences between English and Spanish. The only thing I need you to remember is this is 3 simple rules, and if you apply them, you will understand the subjunctive and you'll be able to use it just like a native Spanish speaker. Before we can jump into the rules, the subjunctive is a mood. It means we're expressing something in Spanish, but it is not a verb tense. You just need to understand that the subjunctive is when you are not affirming something. I'm going to repeat that one more time because it's going to be very different and very difficult for you to grasp at first. But as we go through this video, you're going to see how simple this method is, and it's going to help you understand exponentially more whenever you read or speak to someone in Spanish. because the subjunctive means we are not affirming something. That is the first rule here. You use the subjunctive for something you are not sure about. We use it for something we can't confirm. So for example, I'm going to give you a situation and I want you to think about yourself in the situation for a moment. Let's pretend that you're going to have a big party at your house and you want to invite your friend to the party. You print out all of the invitations and you go to your best friend and say, "Hey, Maria, I'm having a party. Here's your invitation. I hope you can come." It's not going to make sense to the native speaker because the native speaker has intuition of how this is supposed to work. But as a native English speaker who learned this language, I'm going to tell you when you hand somebody an invitation and say, "I hope you come to my party," that person can reply in two ways. You cannot confirm that person is going to come to your party. You say, "I hope you're going to come," but you cannot confirm it. You don't know if they're going to say yes. You don't know if they're going to say no. And further on down the line, perhaps they tell you yes today. Further on down the line, something could come up and they don't come to your party. You cannot confirm this. Now, I want you to think about your knowledge of English. What word in the sentence, "I hope you can come to my party," lets you know that this is something that's uncertain? Did you guess hope? When you say, "I hope you can come," what you're doing is you're telling this person, "Hey, I would like for you to come, but you can't confirm it." Therefore, you have to use the subjunctive mood in Spanish. The subjunctive mood is always for something you cannot confirm. So that's the first rule. Use the Spanish subjunctive for something that you cannot confirm in Spanish. Now, that's not the only example of this. Let's go ahead and take a look at another one. I can say, if I'm talking about the weather, "I hope it doesn't rain tomorrow. Ojalá no llueva mañana." I can say, "I hope it doesn't rain," but can I confirm this? No, I can't. It might rain tomorrow even though the forecast says it's not going to. This is again something I cannot confirm. No matter which example you decide to look at in Spanish, you're going to see that when you have the subjunctive, it's always something you cannot confirm. Now, a lot of other teachers might say, "Oh, well, weirdo, wishes, emotions, desires." This was all like very difficult for me to understand. And the way my brain compartmentalized this was to take it into something I can confirm and something I cannot confirm. Here's another example of something you cannot confirm in Spanish that also uses the subjunctive. Yo quiero que hables francés. I want you to speak French with me. Well, I can want all I want. I can sit here and tell somebody, "Hey, I want you to speak French with me. I want you to speak French with me." But can you confirm that that person is actually going to speak French with you? No, you can't. The first rule for the subjunctive is you use it for something you cannot confirm. The second rule for the subjunctive in Spanish is when you're talking about information that's already known. You're talking about something that's old information and you're adding something onto it. Now, let me give you an example of this. I want you to pretend that your friend is driving in her car and she's coming to visit you. So your friend's going to pick up the phone. She's going to say, "Hey, Maria, I'm coming over to your house. I'll be there in 5 minutes." Your friend arrives at your house. She gets out of the car. She knocks on the door, opens the door, and she's going to say, "Ay, qué bueno que estés aquí, amiga." I'm so happy you're here, my friend. Why did I use the subjunctive here? It's not for something I'm not confirming because here we've already confirmed that our friend's here. Herein lies the second rule with the subjunctive. You use it for information you already know. From context, your friend has opened the door. You know that your friend is here at your house. So you're going to use the subjunctive to say, "Hey, it's great that you're here. I'm happy to see you." We're going to confirm information we already know and talk about something that's already known in context. That right there is the second rule for the subjunctive. And it's a lot simpler than understanding 7 or 8 or 9 different rules. So far, we've only looked at the present subjunctive, but how would this work in the past, and how would this work with other situations where we have to use the subjunctive in Spanish? Let's talk about if clauses. Whenever we're using an if situation like this, if situations are things that are not real. So it's something we cannot confirm. Si yo tuviera más dinero, compraría una casa. If I had more money, I would buy a house. Again, we're talking about something that is not able to affirm. We cannot confirm that I have more money because this is a hypothetical situation. Si yo tuviera más dinero, yo compraría una casa. When I say tuviera, that's the subjunctive of had. And it's working here because this is not something I can confirm. This is a completely made up situation that is not real. This is a completely made up situation that I cannot confirm. I will never be able to confirm it because I am using si. which means if. And we do the same thing in English, you know. If I won the lottery tomorrow, I would take a trip to Spain. Again, here, we're using this for something we cannot confirm. It's very, very simple. We use the subjunctive for things we cannot confirm, and we use it for things that we already know and we're adding something to. It's very, very simple. Let's look at some other examples. Yo dudo que él compre una casa. I doubt he'll buy a house. Whenever we use the word doubt, we're just by the way English works, whenever we say doubt, we're saying this is something we don't think is going to happen. It's something we're not confirming. We can take a look at another example. ¿No crees que yo tenga buenas intenciones? Okay, so here we have the subjunctive again. Whenever we say tenga, that's the subjunctive of have in Spanish. But what we're doing is we're asking somebody a question. Hey, do you think I have bad intentions? We cannot confirm their answer. We don't know if they're going to say yes or if they're going to say no. So again, we're using the subjunctive because it's something we cannot confirm. And it doesn't stop just here. Let's look at something else in the past tense so we can understand this a little bit deeper and really solidify this for you in your brain. Now let's look at an example of the past subjunctive. Okay, we're going to talk about something that already happened. Quería que hablara conmigo en la fiesta. I wanted him to talk to me at the party. The party came, the party finished. Now we're expressing to a friend what we wanted him to do. We are confirming that it's something he didn't do. So the first rule of uncertainty is out of the window. But the second rule is talking about something that we already know. You're talking to your friend that was at your party. Your friend knows that this person was there, and you know he was there. So all you're saying is, I wanted him to talk to me at the party. We're talking about information that both parties know. I've gone through and I've given you a couple of very simple rules to follow so you can understand the Spanish subjunctive much more simply. No matter what example you look at, if you translate it into English, you're always going to find an element of we're talking about something that we already know or we're talking about something unreal. So the next time a Spanish teacher approaches you with all of these different sets of rules that you see here, you can say, hey, I got this. It's very simple. You use the subjunctive for something that you already know, or you use the subjunctive for something that you cannot confirm. All right, guys, see you next time.